I'm here on the Gamescom show floor with Michael Hyam. We're just outside the Xbox booth, and you've just played a little bit of State of Decay 3. How was it?
State of Decay 3 is real. You know, there's a lot of conversation about the state of the game.
Yeah.
But I got hands-on with it, played a bunch of combat, got to see a lot of the new gameplay systems in place for it. And I am impressed considering that what I played was an alpha build. It's a very early build of the game. But the thing that stood out to me most with my hands-on time with it is that the gunplay is a lot punchier. It feels like a proper third-person shooter. You know, you think of State of Decay, it's focusing on the survival elements, the community building stuff. All of that is still there for sure. But it feels like it plays like a proper third-person action game now. There's a lot more smoother movement, a lot more options when it comes to combat, and just the guns are a lot punchier. And I think that is one thing that is going to help separate it from the previous State of Decays. So I'm very happy to report that this game plays really well.
So, in contrast to the first couple of games, did you get an impression of how sort of systems-driven versus story-driven this one is? Because there is a real difference between the first two in that regard, right?
Yeah, this one is an evolution of two, I would say. Yeah. And we got to see a lot of how the community systems have changed a lot.
Yeah.
You know, for example, when you build a facility, instead of upgrading it at level 1, 2, and 3, there's different branches in which you can upgrade the facility itself. And they've also expanded a lot of the procedurally generated characters in your communities.
Wow,
they have a lot more traits that really change how they function.
Yeah.
And they also have specific behaviors in their specific encampments too. So, for example, there was a character in my community who took up more water resources, so I would have to gather more water to sustain my community because he takes long showers. Well, that's just one of his traits.
I was going to say, I was thinking is he diabetic or?
There could be things like that, especially with how intricate these systems are and how wide-ranging they are. These are randomized traits that affect their stats and just the way they change what you have to worry about within your communities. And because in State of Decay you can swap between controlling all the different characters, some are really good with sniper rifles, so they'll get extra damage when you get headshots with a long-range weapon, or some might take injuries a lot easier, so if you get hit, your health bar will be they'll block out your health bar a lot more if they get hit. So it's all these little intricacies that make each of these procedurally generated characters feel distinct, and they kind of add a little bit more dynamism to the things you have to worry about in State of Decay. Because at the end of the day, it's all about managing communities, managing people. And so, unfortunately, the reality with that is that everyone's going to have different needs, they're going to have different quirks. And that's all built in to the game on a systems level. At the end of the day, though, it is very much about resource management. So, water, food supplies, health supplies, and the way you build your communities and the characters you put in place in terms of responsibilities can also affect things like how fast injured characters can recover. So that's a microcosm of how they're thinking about State of Decay 3, where these systems are all familiar, that you remember from 1 and 2, but they are built in a way that is a lot more detailed. Now, one of the things that you might be concerned about is, are they doing too much? Is it going to be too much to manage? I think what they've told me is that their approach is if you want to worry about that stuff, if you want to get into the details, into the weeds of those things, you will reap the benefits from it, but you don't have to always engage with it on that level.
Just focusing a little on the combat more, because you've talked about how it's improved from the first two. What's the sort of minute-to-minute combat like?
Yeah, that's so the way this game is built, open world, big map, and the focus is on infestation networks. So there are points in the map that have zombie infestations, and they branch off into different parts of the map, and your job is to cut them off at the head. So you go to specific locations where you have to fight waves of zombies, and there's you go into say a town has been infested. You have to kill off 4 points of infestation, and then you will unlock the heart of that infestation site, and then you got to destroy it. But at the same time, I'm in there with 3 other players, and you're fending off waves of zombies, and you still have bloaters, you have juggernauts at the same time, and you're also trying to kill off these points of contact in those sites. So it's very chaotic, and it can get out of hand really fast. And there's a lot of points of interest in between those infestation sites. And we saw a little bit about how players can approach this from different perspectives. You know, for us, this is a short demo, so we went in guns blazing. We're just like, you know, we got like drum mags on our AKs, and we're just like mowing down zombies, hoping that we can survive. Yeah. But there are a lot of things in the environment where you can like cause oil spills, you can lure out zombies.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's like flammable, so you can get a horde of zombies into one area, light them all up with a bomb, and take care of them that way. There are a lot more stealth options as well. You know, you have silenced weapons. I think the stealth mechanics have been improved a little bit from the small bit that I saw.
That's awesome, because I wouldn't really associate the first two games with stealth at all. Really, it was there, but it wasn't a huge sort of consideration, really. Yeah. And I know that like 20-minute Gamescom demo, there's very little time for nuance.
For sure.
But one thing that isn't subject to nuance, really, the size of the map. It feels like the design of the game that you're talking about feels like it lends itself to a massive map, right?
Yes.
So, did you get a sense of the scale of the thing?
Man, so I was able to like open the map and see the limited part that I saw, but it feels like a very big world. Don't know exactly how big it is, but the way that they have structured the game, as I mentioned, with like the infestation networks, it seems like really widespreading, and this is something that you'll have to manage as the game goes on. They said that like if you clear an infestation site, eventually it can come back if you're not careful about how you build your communities. So I get the impression that it is going to be pretty wide-ranging for, you know, it's not going to be a forever game, but it is a game that you're going to want to continually come back to, play with other players. So I think that I'm getting the impression that it's going to be perhaps bigger than State of Decay 2, and with a lot more dynamic systems in place to like keep that map interesting. Because that's the number one thing. Like, the game could be as big as it wants to be, but it's what you do with that, and how dynamic and how much things change as the game goes on. Of course, again, an alpha build, you're not going to get a full sense of that, but I think they have systems and mechanics in place that will make a bigger open world more interesting to play in.
Cool. And lastly, Undead Labs. Haven't heard much from them since State of Decay 2, really. That studio's gone through a lot of upheaval. Yep. Some things we know about, some things we don't. I'm getting the sense from you that this is like a really big step up from them. Yeah,
and it's it feels like a next generation State of Decay, or I would say a current gen State of Decay, right? The previous games were pretty janky, but that's like the nature of them, right? The survival games have that sort of edge to them. Even though this was an alpha build, it feels like they understand all the things that matter in a State of Decay game, and they seem like they're playing really well within that space. And you know, despite all of the sort of turmoil for a lot of studios under the Xbox banner, or who were under the Xbox banner, you know, as of right now, as having this conversation, it's still kind of up in the air who their new owners are going to be, when that sale is going to be finalized. So I can imagine, like, in the middle of making this big game that you've been working on for a long time, you're worried about the fate of your studio. So it's really nice to see that, like, oh yeah, they have a tangible game that functions really well with a good, strong identity, something that a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time.
People love State of Decay. I remember the first one, and I remember it remastered on the Xbox One, and everyone came back to it. It's like, it's one of these things, you don't think about it all the time, but when it does come back, everyone's there. So,
so it's good to see that seems like they're on track for this. There is a beta that's going to be up towards the end of the year, and they're still looking at a 2027 release date. And if they could pull it off, it would be a really good story to come out of the games industry, especially at a time when there's just, you know, a lot of studio closures and successes and failures. But it seems like for now, Undead Labs is on track, and I can't wait to see more of State of Decay 3.
Of course, like the oncoming horde, there's so much more to cover at Gamescom. Stick with us on IGN.